The night my neighbor asked me if I was good in bed, the entire hallway seemed to fall silent. The flickering light above our apartment doors hummed like it was holding its breath, and for a moment I felt as if time itself had paused, waiting to hear what I would say. It wasn't the kind of question anyone expects from someone they barely know, especially not at midnight, with rain tapping softly against the old building's cracked windows. Her eyes were tired, curious, and strangely desperate. And when I finally answered, the look on her face changed in a way I will never forget. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of compassion, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that humanity still exists, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to The Kindness Chronicles. Stories like this remind us that even the smallest acts of empathy can change someone's life forever. The building where I lived was old enough to carry memories in its walls. Paint peeled from the stair railings, the elevator worked only when it felt like it, and the corridors always smelled faintly of coffee and rain. It wasn't a place people chose because they loved it, it was a place people ended up when life had taken a few unexpected turns. I had moved there 2 years earlier after my father passed away and the weight of hospital bills forced me to sell the family house. It was quiet, affordable, and lonely in a way that matched how I felt inside. Most of the tenants kept to themselves. You could live there for years and never know the names of the people whose doors you passed every day. But the apartment across from mine changed occupants one autumn evening when a moving truck pulled up and a woman stepped out carrying a box that looked heavier than she was. Her name, I later learned, was Maya. At first, I only noticed small things about her. The way she always wore a faded gray coat even when the weather wasn't cold enough for it. The tired circles beneath her eyes. The way she moved like someone who hadn't slept properly in months. She never stayed in the hallway long enough for conversation. She simply nodded politely and disappeared behind her door. Life in the building continued quietly for weeks. I worked long shifts at a small repair shop in town, fixing old electronics and appliances people thought were beyond saving. It wasn't glamorous work, but there was something satisfying about giving broken things another chance. Maybe that's why I noticed when Maya started coming home later and later. Sometimes I would hear her footsteps echo through the corridor long after midnight. Sometimes she carried grocery bags. Sometimes she carried nothing at all, walking slowly like the weight she carried couldn't be seen. One rainy evening I found her sitting on the hallway floor outside her apartment, her back against the wall and her head in her hands. The groceries beside her had spilled across the floor, a carton of eggs broken and leaking across the tiles. I helped her pick them up without asking questions. She thanked me with a quiet voice that sounded like it had forgotten how to be loud. After that night, something shifted between us. Not friendship exactly, but recognition. The kind that passes between two people who understand struggle without needing to explain it. Weeks passed. Winter arrived early that year, covering the streets in cold wind and gray skies. The building's heater groaned constantly, fighting to keep the chill away. That was when Maya began knocking on my door occasionally. At first it was simple things. Borrowing a screwdriver. Asking if I knew how to fix a flickering lamp. Wondering if I had extra batteries. Each visit lasted only a few minutes. But I noticed something else every time she stood in my doorway. Behind the exhaustion in her eyes was something deeper. Fear. Not the kind people feel when they watch a scary movie or walk down a dark street. This was the kind that settles in your chest when life refuses to give you a break. Then came the night everything changed. The rain was relentless, hammering against the windows like it was trying to break its way inside. I had just finished repairing an old radio when I heard footsteps in the hall. Slow. Hesitant. A soft knock came a moment later. When I opened the door, Maya stood there soaked from the rain, strands of dark hair stuck to her face. Her expression looked different than usual. There was nervousness in it, but also determination. She stepped closer, lowering her voice as if the hallway itself might overhear. And then she asked the question. She asked if I was good in bed. For a second I thought I had misheard her. The word seemed too strange, too sudden, hanging in the air between us like a challenge or a test. But when I looked at her face, I saw something that made my confusion fade. She wasn't flirting. She wasn't teasing. She was desperate. Her eyes searched mine like someone hoping for an answer that could change everything. The hallway light flickered again. And that's when I gave the reply that shocked her. I told her that if she meant whether I knew how to stay awake all night beside someone who needed care, if she meant whether I knew how to sit quietly with someone who couldn't sleep because pain kept them awake, if she meant whether I could hold someone's hand through the worst nights of their life without expecting anything in return, then yes, I was very good in bed. Because I had spent the last year of my father's life doing exactly that. The silence that followed was heavy and fragile. Her eyes filled with tears so suddenly it felt like the room itself had cracked open. And that was when the truth finally came out. Maya's younger sister was dying. Cancer had crept into their lives quietly, stealing normal days and replacing them with hospital visits, medicine schedules, and sleepless nights. They had moved into the building because it was close to the clinic and cheap enough to afford after medical bills swallowed their savings. But the treatments had grown harder. Her sister barely slept anymore. The pain kept her awake most nights, and Maya had been trying to handle everything alone. Work. Bills. Caregiving. Fear. She hadn't meant the question the way it sounded. What she had really meant was whether someone, anyone, would be willing to help her stay awake through those long nights when exhaustion made her feel like she might collapse. I didn't answer with words. I simply grabbed my jacket and followed her across the hallway. The apartment looked smaller than mine, but warmer somehow. A soft lamp glowed in the corner of the living room where a young girl lay curled beneath blankets, her face pale but peaceful in the quiet moment between waves of pain. Her name was Lena. She looked barely 17. That night became the first of many. Sometimes I sat beside the bed while Maya slept for a few precious hours. Sometimes I made tea. Sometimes I simply listened to Lena talk about music she loved, books she wanted to read, and the future she hoped would still be waiting for her. The strange thing about suffering is how quickly it reveals the best parts of people. Days turned into weeks. Our hallway, once silent and distant, slowly filled with small moments of kindness. Other neighbors noticed what was happening. Someone left homemade soup outside Maya's door. Someone else offered rides to the clinic. Even the grumpy man downstairs started bringing fresh bread from the bakery where he worked. The building that once felt lonely began to feel like something else. A community. A family made from strangers. Lena's condition didn't magically improve. Some nights were harder than others. Some mornings came with quiet tears. But there were also moments of laughter. Moments where hope flickered just enough to keep going. And every time I remembered the night Maya stood in the hallway asking that strange question, I realized something important. Sometimes people ask the wrong words when they're really searching for help. Months later, spring sunlight began slipping through the building's cracked windows again. Lena grew stronger after a new treatment began working. The doctors cautiously called it progress. For the first time in a long while, Maya smiled without the shadow of exhaustion behind it. One afternoon she told me something I'll always carry with me. She said that night in the hallway had restored her faith in people. She had been prepared for rejection, embarrassment, or judgment. Instead, she found compassion. And sometimes compassion is exactly what saves someone. Now, if this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes kindness still matters, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to The Kindness Chronicles. Your support helps these stories reach people who might need them the most.